Somewhere right now, a developer in São Paulo is running a frontier artificial intelligence model on a laptop. The model cost hundreds of millions of dollars to train. They paid nothing for it. Why would Chinese labs spend billions building a model that rivals OpenAI's best, and then hand the weights to anyone who asks? In January 2025, a lab called DeepSeek dropped the weights for its R1 model onto the open internet. Within days, developers on every continent had downloaded it. No license fee, no usage cap, no invoice. The training cluster that produced it sat in China. The bill did not follow the file. So, why spend billions on a model and release it for free? The popular answer is marketing, mindshare, recruiting. Open source is the fastest distribution channel ever built. And if your model is everywhere, your name is everywhere. DeepSeek R1 reached the top of the Hugging Face download charts within days of its release. No advertising required. The coverage alone placed Chinese labs in the same sentence as OpenAI for the first time in mainstream Western technology press. And engineers want to work where the work is visible. Open weights are a portfolio, a recruiting ad, and a press release compressed into a single file. That answer isn't wrong. But my read is that it describes the exhaust, not the engine. Labs don't burn nine-figure training runs for press mentions. Something else is being purchased here, and marketing doesn't survive the math. A frontier training run at this scale consumes roughly the electricity of a small town running for months. Stack the chips used in a large cluster end to end, and you'd cover a city block. That infrastructure, that cost, that physical weight, handed to a stranger for free? Marketing doesn't reconcile that. So, why spend billions on a model and release it for free? The deeper answer is ecosystem capture. Give developers a free model, and they build on it. Build enough on it, and dependency accumulates. Not always on the model itself, but on the tooling, the fine-tuning pipelines, the inference infrastructure surrounding it. This is the classic platform strategy. Give away the foundation to own the surface above it. Android, Linux, Chromium. When developers standardize on a model's interface shape or fine-tuning format, switching costs grow invisibly. Chinese cloud providers stand to capture inference spending from developers who cannot self-host at scale. The Quen model lineage from Alibaba has followed a similar pattern. Open weights, proprietary cloud inference running alongside. Ecosystem explains adoption. It doesn't explain why you'd give away the weights themselves to rivals who can run them independently, improve them, and never touch your cloud. A developer in Berlin running DeepSeek-R1 on their own hardware sends no revenue anywhere near China. Ecosystem lock-in requires the developer to eventually need something you control. If the model is fully self-hostable, what exactly are they locked into? That question doesn't have a good answer at this layer. Something more structural is happening. Here's the hypothesis I keep returning to. Open weights aren't a product decision. They're a layer decision. The question isn't what you're giving away. It's which layer of the stack you're making worthless. So, why spend billions on a model and release it for free? Because open weights commoditize the layer America monopolizes. If the model itself is free, value migrates away from the model and toward compute, inference hardware, and deployment infrastructure. That is terrain China can contest. The export control regime built by the United States rests on a specific theory: restrict the chips, and you restrict the capability, and you retain the lead. The assumption underneath that theory is that the model, the software layer, is the scarce thing. If the model is no longer scarce, the chips become a commodity input rather than a capability gate. Think of it this way. Imagine a toll road that charges for access to a city. Now someone builds a free bridge 1 mile north. The toll road doesn't disappear, but the leverage it gave the operator over everyone who needed to cross just evaporated. Open weights are the free bridge. The compute stack controlled by the United States is the toll road. DeepSeek's reported training efficiency claims, and it's worth being precise here because no independent benchmark has fully confirmed them, suggest that capable models can be built with fewer high-end chips than previously assumed. If that holds, it changes the denominator on the export control calculation. Once a capable model exists as open weights, any country with mid-tier compute can fine-tune it, deploy it, and build on it. The capability is no longer gated at the model layer. Read the export controls backward. A lock on a door doesn't tell you what's inside, but if you know what the person who installed it was afraid of losing, you can infer the contents. The restriction on advanced chips was a very specific lock. It targeted the input to artificial intelligence capability. That tells you exactly what the installer believed the capability depended on. Open weights are an answer written directly to that fear. The export control was designed to make China dependent on American artificial intelligence. By restricting the inputs, open weights make the dependency run in a different direction. Now the world is running on a layer China produced, and the American moat has to be defended somewhere else. I'll say plainly, I don't think either the triumphalist or the dismissive reading survives contact with the actual incentive structure. The real bet is stranger than both. The strongest bullish reading is this. If DeepSeek's efficiency claims hold under independent scrutiny, the export controls have a real problem. The model layer commoditizes faster than the chip layer can be re-restricted. Every open weights release makes the next round of restrictions less effective. The moat narrows. The strongest bearish reading is also real. The capital burned on these training runs has no direct return path. Open weights train rivals as much as they build ecosystems. A European lab fine-tuning DeepSeek is not a Chinese customer. It's a competitor with a head start. And if the efficiency claims don't fully survive independent benchmarking, the cost structure may not be as disruptive as reported. The node gap in leading-edge chip production is still very real. Inference hardware and deployment at scale still favor players with manufacturing advantages the labs cannot conjure. The free model is leverage only if the ecosystem it seeds outlasts the subsidy required to keep producing frontier weights. No one, including the labs themselves, knows that timeline yet, which means the driving question was slightly the wrong one all along. The question was never why you'd spend billions on a model and release it for free. That question assumes the model is the asset being given away. It isn't. The model is the instrument. What's being given away is the relevance of the layer above it. The better question is, what is the moat actually made of once the model itself is free? And the answer is whoever controls the infrastructure that runs the free thing. My honest read? This is one of the more structurally interesting moves in the current technology competition, not because it's certain to work, but because it forces the response to happen on ground the United States didn't choose. The export control was a lock. Open weights are a question written back to it. What exactly were you locking? That developer in São Paulo running DeepSeek-R1 didn't pay for the model, but someone did. The question is whether the bill eventually comes due in a currency the payer can collect. Read the ban backward. The thing they sealed tells you what they valued. The thing China gave away tells you what they decided to make worthless. The moat is only as deep as the thing it surrounds still matters. If the model layer commoditizes, what's the next thing that gets a lock put on it? And who installs it first? Leave your answer below. And if this kind of layered read is what you're here for, subscribe. There's more of this coming.